Hey guys, welcome back here to Advanced Bass Fishing, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel today to check the video out. You guys, today I want to talk about and have a conversation on probably the 2 or 3 different biggest misconceptions of bass that people have that really hurt their fishing success. There are some things about bass that I have learned in my own experience over the years that sort of go against a lot of stuff that you read. So I'm going to sort of go over those, explain to you guys what those are. And if you can incorporate them in your fishing, I definitely think it's going to help you guys have a lot more consistent success out there. So we'll get into that today. Also, guys, thank you very much for everybody that's taken time to hit that subscribe button here to Advanced Bass Fishing. Appreciate everybody doing that. If you hype the videos, like the videos, it really pushes the channel out on the algorithm. And also, guys, thank you very much for everybody that has been using all the links I put in every video description. If you guys are getting something to help you catch fish out of Advanced Bass Fishing, and you want to give something back to the channel, just going into any of my videos has the My Tackle Warehouse link in the description of the video. If you bookmark and use that link from now on to make your tackle purchases, the channel gets a small percentage of a commission on anything you buy. So I really appreciate everybody that's done that. Me and my family, thank you very much for that. Okay, bass fishing misconceptions. This is one of my favorite topics because there's lots of them out there. And one of the things about bass fishing misconceptions, it's like when you talk about anything in fishing in general, there are no absolutes whatsoever. Bass are mysterious creatures, and they do things that we just don't understand. There's no reason for it, and that's okay. We don't have to know everything about bass fishing, but some of the misconceptions that I see about fish cost people catching fish because it limits their techniques and it limits their approaches. So let's get in, to a couple different things out there. First of all, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about bass is that people think in terms of bass being actively feeding or not actively feeding, and being hungry or not, or the fact that they're eating because they're hungry and they're hitting your baits because they're hungry. It's been my experience in bass fishing, from my own observation and everything, that most of the bass feed at nighttime. This is when they are actively hunting for food, where they're actually in the mode where they're looking for crawdads, they're looking for minnows, they're looking for perch, they're feeding at night. Bass are low light feeders. When you catch a bass during the daytime, I'm not saying they're not opportunistic. And if they see some prey coming past them, they're going to take advantage of that, but they're not actively feeding. They're not actively hunting like they do at night. That's why night fishing is so much better. It's like, if you come down here in my part of the country or any lake across the country that has water visibility of over about 2 feet, and if you have water temperatures over 60 degrees, you're going to catch twice as many fish at night anywhere you go, simply because those fish are actively feeding. Now, given that during the daytime, you have to understand that when you have a bass bite a lure, they're taking advantage from that from an opportunistic point of view to eat something to feed. But the misconception lies in the fact that they are feeding, and they're not. They're actually reacting to opportunities, and they're reacting to other things that generate strikes. Here's the reason that you catch fish during the daytime more than anything else. Number one, it's like instinctual or reactional. They see a bait out there, especially a bait that's moving through the water, and they have an instinct within them that has been evolved over millions of years, where they have to make a split-second decision whether to get that or not get that. And that's why reaction baits are so effective a lot of times, like your crankbaits and your spinner baits and your jerk baits and fast-moving lures, because they trigger that instinctual reactive strike. So that's one reason you catch them. When you catch a fish burning a crankbait past the stump, it's not because that fish is hunting and actively feeding. That's an instinctual strike. Next thing with that is competition. A lot of times, if you have bass that are in little wolf packs or schools and they see potential prey or target, which is your jig down there, your plastic worm, a lot of times they'll dart out there and get it before another bass gets it. It's just competition within, it's bred into him again. Another reason they hit it is out of curiosity. And a lot of the times that they hit it out of curiosity, they will bite the lure with their mouth shut. I don't know how many times, guys, that I have seen a bass strike a topwater lure with their mouth completely shut. They're not trying to eat it. They're trying to kill it, or they're curious about it, or whatever. A lot of times bass will nip at a lure and bite a lure because they're curious to know what it is. They're not really sure. They get fooled sometimes. So that's another thing with it. These are the key factors that really determine, catching fish or not. It's not they're actually being hungry. So how can you incorporate that into your fishing techniques? The first thing is you have to stimulate that particular instinct within a fish. And there's two instincts that I have found during the daytime that stimulates the instinct of a fish. Number one is take advantage of the opportunistic feeder instinct. And then you got to take advantage of the reaction strike. So those are two different lure categories. The opportunistic feeder strike is something that looks very real, like a Cinco, a watermelon or green pumpkin Cinco soft plastic bait, a soft plastic creature bait, a jig that looks just like a crawdad. Anything that looks halfway real is going to be something that can trigger that opportunistic strike where, let's say, for example, that there's a bass sitting down by a log underneath the water, and then you're working that jig or that, dragging that Cinco by that log, and that bass is not, it's not in the mood to go feeding, but it's like all of a sudden it sees this natural looking thing that is crawling along the bottom real slow, and it looks like something that's alive, and they're going to say, why not? I'm going to suck that thing in. It's 5 inches away from me. I'm just going to get it. I'm not really hungry. Sort of like when you're, watching TV at 9 o'clock at night, you may not be starving, but, if somebody offers you a bowl of chocolate ice cream, you're probably going to take it. Sort of the same thing with the bass there. So that's some type of an opportunistic thing that comes. And the second with that is take advantage of that reaction strike from a speed perspective. So if you want to trigger strikes, number one is use your most natural looking lures for an opportunistic strike. And number two, use your fastest moving lures to create a reaction strike. Reaction lures, in other words, work good in two different types of scenarios. Number one, it works good when those fish are, it's sort of a paradox. It works good if the fish are really active or really inactive. Sort of like, it doesn't make sense, but that's the way it works. In other words, the most active scenario for most bass are when the weather conditions are like prefrontal. You got a cold front moving in, the air temperatures are normal or above normal, you got humidity in the air, you got the barometric pressure falling, you got some clouds moving through, you got some wind, southerly or southwesterly airflow. All of these factors make the bass actively want to feed. That's just the reality of it. And that's when a reaction lure, especially a bigger reaction lure, can work really good. Now, the other spectrum, let's say that cold front passes through and it gets super tough. Instead of having a south wind and a warm temperature and a cloudy sky, this bad cold front rolls through. The wind switches out of the north. It's blowing hard out of the north. Temperatures dropped. It's bright, sunshiny sky, tough fishing conditions. Bass hunker down and they don't want to feed. But if you bring a reaction lure past them, especially multiple times, the instinct part of them will just simply take over. They just can't resist it. It's like, let's say, for example, you've got this same bass on the log that we talked about that's looking at that Cinco moving down on the bank real slow. So picture this bass sitting by a log, this Cinco's moving across the bottom, and he just goes over there and he sucks it in because it looks real prior to the front. Now, after the front, let's say that same bass is sitting down there and everything's different. The water temperature's colder, it's bright overhead, conditions aren't good for feeding, it's not low light, but all of a sudden this crankbait comes buzzing by the stump, and it's like you may go, what the heck's that? And then it comes buzzing by the stump again and again and again. 4 or 5, maybe 10 times this crankbait comes buzzing by this stump. Eventually that bass is just going to, not all the times, but a lot of times that bass will just hit it out of anger or curiosity or simply reflex because this thing will not stop. And that's the two triggers that you have for bass, is reactionary or feeding. So based upon the mood and the personality of the fish, you sort of have to adjust your technique to that. So anyway, that's just some of the misconceptions. A couple other ones, guys, it's like, bass, one of the things about a bass is like they are smarter than what people think. It's like a lot of people think that bass, they have this misconception that bass are these stupid little pea-brain creatures, and they're not, guys. Bass are highly intelligent. They've been on this planet for millions of years. They did not survive that long by being stupid and pea-brained. They are masters of their environment. You can't equate human intelligence to a bass's intelligence and try to measure it on the same level, but it's not, because you take a bass and they've been able to thrive in just a countless number of environments. They can survive in gin clear water. They can survive in muddy water. They can survive in hot temperatures, cold temperatures. They can survive in so many different environments. They can hunt and feed in any different situation. Let's say, for example, right now, if I threw you out in the wilderness at midnight, could you go find some food? No, you probably couldn't. A bass could. You could put a bass in any lake across the country at midnight, and they could find food. They could find food at midnight or at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or whenever. They're masters of their environment. You know, they learn fast. They fail fast. They understand and they learn how to avoid danger. That's how they've been here for so long. So big misconception that I hear a lot of people that they sound like they're disrespectful for bass because they're stupid. Bass are not. Bass are ingenious apex predators in their environment. So anyway, guys, hope it helps out. We'll talk later.